I'll give everybody a couple more, another minute or two for folks to find us here.
We have 11. Here's Marty.
Hey, Marty.
So I just got an internet stability issue notice, so I'm going to go ahead and make you the host just in case, so we don't lose everyone if I have an issue.
So you're talking to Phil, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
It's just in case.
Okay.
Mark. Hey, John. I was telling them that your boss
Hello.
may have waylaid. Pamela, good.
I'll wait a couple more minutes, so we'll start at 12:05. How about that?
That's good.
Give everyone a chance to grab their lunch.
I'm providing them music for us while we wait.
You had pretty good cancellation on your microphone then, because I can't hear.
Hey, folks, Pamela Brief here.
Pamela?
One of the reasons that we might not have a few of the people that I know that signed up, Brown Paper Ticket yesterday sent out a link that is not the same as what Tracy sent out. So I was trying to get on that Brown Paper Ticket thing and it wasn't letting me in. And now Hongju's just texting me with the same thing. So I'm going to send the people that I know that signed up the the email from Tracy. So if
Okay.
you know anybody that signed up that isn't here, you might want to do the same.
Well, and
Yeah, and Brown kind of ended yesterday. So if people were trying to register today, they were kind of out of luck. So
I mean, Tracy, is there a way if we have an email list to just send the link to everyone on that list, or is that not doable?
I put it as an out of office reply in my CCASLA and my ASLA email. So, but I could resend it.
Okay.
Tracy, what I'm saying is that in addition to the email that you sent out to those of us that signed up, Brown Paper Ticket also sent something, and it's not the correct. It wasn't letting me
Yeah, the
in. So
reminder
somehow
was
they
the
did
old,
something.
the old
Yeah.
link.
It was probably the old, I thought I had changed that, but maybe, oh darn, okay. Well, I'll
Yeah, because
resend
it said for the 30th. So I was clicking on that. That's why I got here right at noon. I'm going to send it over to Hongju because he's having trouble too.
Okay, very
I
good. I'll
just
go
wanted
in
to
there
let
right.
you know that might be what's going on.
I'll resend the email that I sent yesterday.
Well, we're meeting a little bit, so you want to start?
We're recording. I think we can go ahead and
Yeah,
they miss it. They can go back.
all right. I'll kick this off then. So welcome, everybody. I'm hoping we have a good attendance with our technical issues. Also would like to thank you so very much for giving up your lunchtime to attend this webinar. I'd like to welcome you from all over the state to this CCASLA sponsored webinar on licensure sunset and legislative advocacy. Before we go on, a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and you can access it at our website at ccasla.org. We do have a lot of material to cover today, and we are going to have a Q&A session after the slide deck presentation. And our webinar today will cover sunset review and ways to advocate for our licensure and our profession. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Phil Armstrong. I'm a 35-year practitioner in the San Diego area. I'm currently the CCASLA president, representing the San Diego chapter. This webinar is sort of an offshoot of many discussions the CCASLA board has had, and we really want this webinar to serve as a challenge to you all to get involved in helping us defend our licensure and have sunset extended. So before we kind of jump into the nuts and bolts on advocacy, just a quick reminder as to what CCASLA is. We're really just a group of landscape architects following legislative bills and policy in Sacramento as it affects the green industry in general and landscape architects in particular. Our board meets once a month. We meet with representatives from the LATC, the Landscape Architects Technical Committee, which is our license board, and the California Architects Board. In addition, we have a lobbyist on retainer, and he advises us and is basically our eyes and ears in Sacramento and a helpful resource in navigating the legislative process. CCASLA's mission really is to advance the profession of landscape architects in the state, and as an instrument of service for the public welfare. And of course, our group tracks the many bills that go through the legislature each legislative session, both in the Assembly and the state Senate. And we track bills that affect policy and positions that affect our industry. We also try and facilitate legislative outreach on local, obviously on state issues, of course, as they affect landscape architects, and on national issues for overall policy. Now, since 2024 is a license sunset year, we wanted to take this opportunity. As I mentioned, the CCASLA board meets on a regular basis, and last year we recognized our internal legislative advocacy efforts needed to look outward to chapters to really help build relationships and advocate for our profession, especially now in this licensure sunset year. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to involve membership in this advocacy effort in explaining our profession and advocating for our profession, and explaining what we do that benefits communities throughout the state and throughout the nation. Our appeal today to you all is we need your help. We want you to be involved and advocate for licensure and to extend the sunset provision. We need you to reach out through any media. Letter writing is probably the easiest low-hanging fruit to your local legislators. Try and set up a virtual or in-person meetings, which we will tell you more about, and really share how vital licensed landscape architects are to the public good and the impacts they make to our communities. And in the process, help promote and elevate our exposure of the profession of landscape architects. So let me go back here. So, I talked a lot about this sunset extension, and John from the LATC, who is the past chairman, will tell you a little bit more about what sunset is and what the process is. So to be frank, the effort, it's not a 7-alarm fire in terms of the danger of our licensure going away, but it's a normal legislative process that we think we want to take advantage of to expose all legislators to our profession. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce John Rachesky. He is the current past president of the Landscape Architects Technical Committee, and John will talk about everything sunset review. So take it away, John, please.
All right, thank you, Phil. John Rachesky, current member and past chair of the LATC. There are currently 5 licensees who are serving on the committee. So we can go to the next slide. And also a little bit of my background. I'm a prior chapter president of both the Northern California and Southern San Diego chapters, as well as a past CCASLA chair president. So anyway, I just wanted to give kind of a brief overview of the sunset process itself and what's going to be happening over the next several months in that regard. State legislature, usually on about a 4 or 5 year cycle, performs what is called the sunset review, where they go in and basically look at a report that is prepared by each board or committee bureau, which includes a number of different types of questions that they specifically look at. But in general, the sunset process provides an opportunity for the legislature, the Department of Consumer Affairs, the various boards and interested parties and stakeholders to discuss the performance of the boards and make recommendations for either improving their operations or as an option, if it's decided to terminate the board or continue it, which is what we're hoping for and expecting. But also to look specifically at the functions that are performed by the boards and whether or not any of those functions can either be consolidated with another board or specific recommendations to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the board. So they'll be looking at a number of different factors, including the operations of the board, looking at enforcement issues. That's an area that they pay particular attention to, as well as looking at actually the licensing provisions of each board. Are they meeting that mandate? It's usually a joint committee of both Assembly and Senate members from the business and professions committees that hold the meetings. They take in information and everything, and then they prepare a report themselves with the recommendations that go to the legislature on what they feel are the issues that need further attention, or the recommendation just to extend the sunset. It's important to remember that although the LATC is directly involved in this process, they're involved with the CAB in preparing the report that goes to the committees for review and presentation during the actual sunset review meeting itself. But they're not allowed to directly lobby the committee or the legislature. So that's why it's extremely important that members of the profession serve in that capacity. If there's specific issues that they feel are important that the committee hear, it should be the public or licensees or other members of the profession that actually bring those issues up. And it's important to make sure that that message includes how important and how critical licensure is to public health, safety, and welfare, as well as differentiating landscape architecture practice from contractors, landscape designers, nurserymen, and others in the design and construction professions. And I provided a link for a document that LATC has put out that basically defines the permitted practices of each of those various professions. And the next slide here, I've included some references. The actual sunset review report is available online if anybody is interested in actually going in and looking at that, what it entails, what information, everything is presented to the committees that they'll be basing their review upon. I think it's also really important to emphasize that every practitioner, every licensee should be familiar with the Landscape Architects Practice Act. And that is available again online and a link. And then again, as I mentioned, one of the key areas that the committee will look at is what are the enforcement actions that the LATC and the CAB have been undertaking in regards to protecting the public health, safety, and welfare. And there's information available as well as what types of complaints and issues that they've been addressing in that regard. So with that, I will turn it back over to Phil. And take it away, Phil.
Me unmute myself. Thank you, John. Thank you for that overview on the sunset review process. You know, we couldn't operate as an efficient board without an effective person running interference for us at the state capitol, and to filter out the tens of dozens of bills that enter the legislative sessions every year. So I'd like to advance my slide here. I'd like to introduce Jason Eichert, who is a lobbyist at Edelstein, Gilbert, Robertson, and Smith. He is our eyes and ears at the state capitol, and everything known to lobbyists under man to help advise our board on best practices and you know, basically how to go about meeting legislators and advocating for our profession. And so we're looking at as the bills that go through. Jason really is the person that tags them for importance for further review for the board. So Jason, please take it away.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks for that nice introduction. For those of you who I haven't met before, like Phil said, I'm Jason, and I'm one of your lobbyists in Sacramento, and we've had the pleasure of working with Phil, his colleagues on the board, and some of you since I believe 2018 when we started working with CCASLA's long-term former lobbyist in Sacramento, Terry Thomas, who's now retired. So like Phil said, we provide you guys monitoring and advice on how to engage on things in the legislature, like you know, sunset review and reauthorization. But CCASLA really relies on its own members for grassroots advocacy. It's an essential part of what you do in lobbying. So Phil, you want to advance the slide one? Thank you, sir. So, you know, I guess to kind of get right down to it, what we're asking for today, or what Phil's already kind of raised, is that we're hoping that everyone who's on this call can reach out and meet with your legislators to urge them to support the extension of the sunset for the LATC and CAB. And to kind of really be blunt about what's at stake here or what's on the table, the reason we're asking you to do this is because this is not just some, you know, bureaucratic operation that has to happen. Every requirement, every educational requirement of your license, everything that distinguishes you from other professionals working in your space, and the operations of LATC and CAB are set to expire by the if the legislature and the governor don't act to reauthorize that law. It's a very common practice. Basically, every licensed professional, their entire body of law is set to sunset every 4 years to afford, like John said, the legislature the chance to review things. So while Phil's right, and we don't have a 7-alarm fire, we don't anticipate major problems with the extension of this sunset, we don't want to take a shot because you've basically got a lot on the line. It is the biggest issue by far as licensed professionals that you have, because your licensure is valuable to you. So, you know, there are 120 members of the state legislature, 80 assembly members, and 40 senators. Everybody on this call is represented by one of each, and they want to hear from their constituents. It's important to them. They all have, every member of the state legislature has a district office or two, and their entire job is to help them interface with local constituents and figure out what's important to the district. And so by hearing from you, by you reaching out and requesting time to meet with a legislator, you are showing that something matters to you. And that's really what we want here. So bottom line, we're asking you to do this because you've got a lot at stake, and there's really no reason not to, and no impediment other than, you know, obviously we recognize it's a call on your time. So the way you go about doing this it's relatively straightforward. After I get done talking, we'll drop a link in the chat, but there's a website. You can identify exactly who your legislators are. If you'd prefer, you can work through CCASLA's board members, and our firm would be happy to help you identify them as well. And from there, it's a simple matter of really picking up the phone and calling the district office and asking for time to meet with your assembly member, and then doing the same for your senator. There's a few things that you should be aware of. I mean, like all of you, legislators are pretty busy people. They have booked schedules. They're in Sacramento from Monday afternoon through Thursday morning, essentially. And once they get home, they have events, they have other meetings that take up their time, throughout that Friday and through the weekend. And this is a long-winded way of saying, try to be accommodating as much as you can with your schedule. Not because you're not equally busy, but because we're the ones ultimately asking for a favor here, not them. And then a couple other points. Once you have reached out, it's not uncommon at all to be offered a meeting with staff. There's no problem with that. Good staff report into their legislators on what they've discussed with a constituent. And also, this was not the case before 2020, as you can imagine, but virtual meetings are more and more common these days. I personally have a slight preference for an in-person meeting, but if you're offered a virtual one, there's no reason to say no to it. So then moving on, the prep work for these meetings, beyond understanding the importance of your own licensure, the importance of your own education, which you are all more familiar with than I am, even as your lobbyist, it's mostly good to identify, one, who should go, and two, kind of the important things that you can bring to the meeting beyond your own experience and information about the significance of your licensure. The who should go are your colleagues who also live in that legislator's district. If you know other people who live around you and are represented by the same people, it's good to take them. Again, other professionals who are landscape architects. It just gives you a little bit of strength in numbers, shows that they actually represent multiple professionals who care about the same things that you do. And then beyond that, what we've found over the years is one of the best ways to make it really clear what you all do is to identify projects in that legislator's district or in the area generally that a landscape architect has had a big role in. That to some extent, it's possible that they drive by something every single day, admire it, and think well of it, and never consider the fact that a landscape architect was essential in making it come to be. And so those are kind of the two high-level things that we'd suggest as prep work, is just really kind of get your arms around who else should be there and what projects are in the area. And then next slide, Phil. So in terms of kind of how a meeting goes, obviously you've all had business meetings before. I don't need to walk you through every part of it, but a few kind of key points. So first off, again, these are busy people and we're asking them favors. So say thank you early and often. The other part, don't take it for granted that they understand what a landscape architect is or does. These are intelligent people, but they're not, omniscient. They don't know everything that's going on in the world or everything about every profession. And there's a lot of good you can do by taking the time to briefly explain that to them. And again, these are largely, very intelligent people, but if they don't have the experience and the exposure to you, it's best to keep your language as simple and straightforward as you can. Even though they're capable of understanding more, the right level is something that you could get across to an intelligent middle schooler. That's no technical jargon if you can avoid it, and nothing overly complicated, but just straightforward explanations of what you do. And just to be redundant of myself, the examples of work, they're the most tangible thing when it comes to explaining your profession, in my opinion, at least. Next, making the ask. It's surprisingly simple, but surprisingly overlooked. Don't take it for granted that they're going to understand intuitively why you're there. Explain exactly what you've just heard from Phil and John. That the LATC and CAB's sunset review is up before the legislature. A bill hasn't been introduced yet, but it will shortly, and that might help too. We can get all that information disseminated to you. But the point is, you are asking at the end of the meeting that this legislator be supportive of extending the sunset for LATC and CAB and for your licensure. And it's as simple as that. You hope that wherever they see it, whether they're a member of a committee that it passes through or it comes to them on the floor, you are just soliciting their support. And that's really worth them hearing. And then lastly, just a few tips on kind of how to have a constructive meeting with a legislator. First off, keep it short and sweet. So there's a few reasons for this. One is we're all human and we all have limited attention spans. And, a 10 to 15 minutes of talking, by the end of that, people lose interest and they're not tuning in anymore as much as they are. Also, keeping it short and sweet leaves times for questions. And for one, if they have questions, you want to make sure you answer them. But two, leaving time for questions almost forces people to engage with you. They have to ask you a question. You have a 30-minute meeting with them potentially. And if you get done in 10 to 15, they want to actually show that they've been listening to you. So it helps you basically feel out how much they've learned and heard from you. And lastly, again, legislators are busy, their staff are busy. It is unfortunately not at all uncommon for members to be late to meetings or have to end them early. So if you plan to speak for a shorter amount of time, you'll guarantee yourself that you hit all the important points. And then last two things on general tips. I'm not sure, who all on the call is politically active in their community, meaning that you participate in fundraising with legislators. Do not mix that discussion with any meeting you have on a bill or on policy. It's illegal. So don't ever do that. And then finally, when I get up to come to work in the morning, I have personal political beliefs like everyone else. I take that hat off and I leave it at home because I can't adequately represent you guys or my other clients if I'm constantly having a political fight on issues that I'm not paid to care about. And you're in a similar position if you're good enough to have these meetings as we're requesting, because you are at the end of the day advocating for your fellow professionals, for your colleagues in front of these legislators. And it serves no one to bring your personal politics into that meeting. So it's an important note to make there. And so I will turn things back over to Phil, and we're happy to answer some questions at the end if anyone's got any.
Jason, thanks so much. I can't stress enough. I think Jason mentioned who should attend the meetings. I think being in San Diego, most of my professional life, our chapter geographically is small. It's just the county of San Diego. So we've had an advantage of having a good strike team of professionals well-versed in advocacy to go out and meet with our local legislators. But bringing people who've it's not their first rodeo meeting with a legislator. We've kind of know how to get to the 30-second elevator pitch. But bringing along somebody who's also a constituent professional is also important. We just recently had a meeting with an assembly member down in the South Bay. I brought along a board member. She happened to be the landscape architect of the municipality down there. So it gave an instant connection as to, oh, you guys also do that? So it really turns on the light bulb to legislators of just seeing how broad a profession and how many things that we have our fingerprints on in our communities. So I can't stress that enough. Relationship building again is important. Looking at the long game and establishing a relationship with the legislator is very important and can even pay dividends in the long run, which we really found out last year as we were looking for bills going through the legislator. So I'd like to introduce to you now Stephanie Landrigan, fellow ASLA. She's the current CCASLA director for Southern California chapter. So please, Stephanie, tell us more about relationship building to our legislators.
Well, thanks, Phil. Thanks. And hello, everybody. We can go to the next slide. I am Stephanie Landrigan. I've been very, very involved in politics. I find it to be thrilling and frustrating, but necessary. And I'm going to talk to you about building a long-term relationship because, first of all, we need to be seen. Let's face it, we are not the most visible profession, and that invisibility is not good for our profession's growth and our power. So this session is to help empower you. And it empowers us to work through policy and politics. We need to be out there so we can talk to legislators and talk to others. This is a prime time. This is the campaign time. So you can attend fundraisers. You can actually volunteer for a campaign. You do not have to always give dollars. You can give your time. You can help them call. You can walk neighborhoods. There are so many ways you can start to become acquainted with the people who are running for office. Now, once you volunteer, you can host a coffee. You need to go to the debates, be seen. And there are public events that happen where legislators are. And the more you're there, you're seen as a community involved professional. So how do you find out about these events? Well, you're on their email list. You read newspapers, I hope, or you troll the internet. But one of the things to remember is we have a lot of events coming up right now. We have President's Day. Believe me, there's going to be activity happening where you're going to see your elected officials and people campaigning at President's Day events, at Arbor Day events. That's coming up. Cesar Chavez Day. There's also Earth Days coming up. It's a huge opportunity for us to be out there interacting with our elected officials. Memorial Day services. This shows your community involvement. And many other, I would say, organizations are a little more externally oriented, the Kiwanis, if you want to look at Seroptimus. So those are the individuals who are out there and bringing in the politicians to talk and the representatives, because they're very key to our success. So joining some of these organizations helps you have a little more tentacles in the community. Now, you can also ask your elected officials to talk at an event. Come speak at your university or wherever. But the long-term relationship building is bigger than this one issue that we are talking about today. Because what you want to do is not just go to somebody when you need help. Your best friends are going to help you because you have a relationship. They're not the people you go to Home Depot to help you clean out your cellar. They're the people who come over and say, okay, I'll help you go through it. So my long-term relationship story is that I was very fortunate to have a very good relationship with my assembly member. And we called her personally because she had introduced a bill that we were very concerned about because it was a little narrowly interpreted. It didn't really deal with the fact that it was affecting landscape architects, and it heavily affected landscape architects. So I called her. We set up a meeting with her legislative director. I went with Pamela Brief. We had a very heart-to-heart discussion with them. And actually, it was kind of an interesting piece of information that we were able to share with the director, because they did not realize that the bill they had proposed was fully implemented only by licensed landscape architects, and they had not included us. They also had other issues there that we brought up because we deal with the nursery industry. We said, you know, I don't know if the nursery industry is going to be able to respond. We are experts in this area. So this relationship was really important to our ability to influence this legislation. And we were able to make some very significant changes. Later, the governor did not sign it, but if the governor had, the amount of changes that we were able to make based upon our involvement was so important. This is something you can do once you have a relationship. So we have to remember that we either influence and affect legislation or we are affected by legislation. We, again, are the experts in landscape architecture, and nobody else is going to tell our story as well as we can. We have to share our experience with the elected officials. They don't know what we do. So this election time gives us a lot of access to people who want to be in the legislature. And I think that if you are able to be out there and talk or listen, you know, after a debate, you don't have to say, oh, I'm going to support you. You can say, I thought that was really interesting. I'm a landscape architect. What do you want to do here? So don't worry if you talk with a district director or their staff, because they actually help direct the legislation. Many of your legislators are not going to remember everything. They're going to assume that they have parsed out this information to their staff. These relationships do pay dividends in the long run. And I always send a thank you note. It's so important. I have another little story, but I don't know if that's so important. I lobbied Dianne Feinstein many, many years ago to deal with the fact that there was some national licensure problems happening. And she spent one-on-one time with me, 10 minutes, but it was lovely. And I wrote her a handwritten note. And the next time I met with one of her staff members, they went, you know, Dianne Feinstein has that note under her glass on her table. So if you think that being a person who's grateful, think of how many bad, icky things that these people hear from because they didn't do what somebody wanted. So always take time to follow up and to be gracious, because remember, you only have one reputation to ruin. So don't promise something you can't do. And thanks for listening to me. I hope that you're going to go out there, go get them. Let's advocate. And I'm going to turn it back to Phil. Thank you, Phil.
Stephanie, thank you very much. Very good tips on building those long-term relationships and getting involved in the civic process. So thank you so much. Next, you know, we can't do this effort without your help. So, you know, involving all the chapters, Northern California, Southern California, Sierra, and San Diego, on this one issue is going to help elevate us and make everybody aware of actually, oh, you know, we're important. So, you know, traditionally, I think everybody in this webinar knows that landscape architects are kind of the redhead stepchild of the building profession, and we never get enough respect, as Rodney Dangerfield said. So being able to involve and get your members, your chapter members, enthusiastic and challenged about doing this advocacy is a very important, and will help us carry water in this effort. So I'd like to introduce Dalton. I keep saying Lavoie, ASLA. He's the CCASLA director of the Sierra chapter. Dalton.
Thanks, Phil. I usually tell people not to say Lavoie because then they start speaking French to me and I don't know French. So Dalton Lavoie, one of the CCASLA directors for California Sierra. The other one is Andrew Wickham, who's also on the call here today. And just gave you some props, Stephanie. Great job. Andrew texted me, said you did great. So, and I agree. One of the things I want to talk with everyone out today about is I've been involved with local, state, and national advocacy efforts now since 2009. And over those years, I've had a lot of opportunities to prepare resources, get experience going into different offices and having these conversations. It's a daunting thing when you first get involved. having done it for this long now, I can tell you it's totally achievable, and we have a lot of good resources for you if you're thinking about and interested in taking this on, and we hope you are, because it's really important that we're all out there being vocal and visible with our legislators so that they understand who we are and that we can be available, not, like has been said many times on the call, when we need something, but maybe when they need something, or when an issue comes up that's truly a threat. Licensure is our #1 issue, polled every year by ASLA. The reason we get together and we have ASLA, and one of the things we defend and watch out for. So this it's a very timely webinar to talk about that topic and our role in making sure that our licensure sunset review, we get approved and things move on. We continue to be licensed in the state. So as I mentioned, there's lots of resources already available to you, whether you are aware of them yet or not. You hopefully will be after this call. So some of the ones shown at the bottom of the screen here, we're prepared for actual state legislative efforts. It talks about a lot of the top issues that we address as landscape architects, especially ones that are related to licensure, and actually has a lot of the summary talking points that we've talked about here about why licensure is important, how we're licensed under what legislation. It talks about what schools we go to get our education and our accreditation, our exams that we take. So it gives you a lot of the talking points you may want to bring up as you kind of defend and explain to a legislator why we're not just a randomly licensed profession that wants to have it. Like it's really important, and there's a lot of really great examples in the community, which we hope you'll bring out and show some of your own examples. But if you don't, these materials were prepared with examples from past chapter award winners, so that already have statewide examples of landscape architecture projects that are usually more high profile, or at least representative of a broad range of projects that landscape architects work on. So you can maybe have to clear that initial hurdle of explaining to a legislator or their staff member who we are and what we do in general. So those materials are available to you. They're on the CCASLA website. You can click them, download them, print them, bring them on your tablet, whatever, show them on your screen if you're meeting virtually. And we hope that you'll use those. On the next slide, it's actually just the next set of images. There's also some national advocacy tools and resources that we hope you'll use if you're interested, especially in climate change, which is a big topic. There's lots of great policy ideas. If you don't have a specific topic, or if it's a meeting that follows licensure, or they ask about our role in climate change, there's lots of great examples in here, recommendations of how and where landscape architects are doing that work. And in the climate action plan and field guide, there's lots of great resources for you on how to build your network, other ways that you can advocate if you're not doing legislative meetings, how you can build a network of people to go with you. A lot of us may be a little intimidated to go in alone or make the call on our own. So how do you build a group and go in together? And what are those groups composed of, and what materials you might want to bring? Lots of good resources, very polished, ready for you to use, and we hope you will, in preparing and going and doing this outreach. There's also on the CCASLA website reports if you're interested in what bills we're tracking or have tracked in the past, and maybe a summary of what we did last year. One of them was just mentioned by Stephanie. We were very active on one particular bill that was looking at something that would very much affect the way we perform, every one of us performs our work. And we're able to effectively talk with the legislator, get revisions to the bill. The bill was as Stephanie said, ultimately not signed, so it didn't end up being an issue. But if it had been, we were represented and had proposed edits that made it more achievable and implementable for us as landscape architects. We'd also like to recommend you bring things like, if you have the digital version of the Landscape Architecture magazine, or you still get the print version, that's a good thing, or you have old ones even. They're really very nice coffee table quality things you can leave behind or use as examples to show the type of work that we do. If you're doing or involved on the chapter, at the chapter level with any project events or tours, ribbon cuttings are great things to invite legislators out to. If you're already going to be gathering, if you're doing a community outreach meeting, have them come if they're part of and representing that area. They like to be visible at those things too. Get a photo op in, and you build that. You build that connection, and like Stephanie was mentioning, over time, you build a relationship with them, and we're able to more effectively then talk about current legislation that is being voted on, maybe legislation they're interested in introducing, or our holy grail and what we hope to be doing as a group also is preparing and getting legislators to introduce legislation that we're interested in. So other events that happen in the community that you may be involved with every year, something like Parking Day. If you have any projects that they're already, or if they have any projects, excuse me, that they're already working on that a landscape architect could or should be involved with, you could mention that you're aware of the project and possibly, if you have the time and energy, would be interested in you know, providing pro bono services, then that's always welcome and a great way to get involved with things that they care about. So those are some of the resources that I'll mention off the bat. There's lots of other things on the CCASLA website. If you go in there and check it out, that we make available to everybody. So please do check those out. And I just wanted to end with on my part with a call to action. This is some of the work that we've done at the national level in DC, doing legislative visits. And we want you to please report your efforts. If you're going out there, or even if you're interested in it, we hope you'll report to us that you're interested. If you need some help or assistance, we're all happy as directors to talk with you and help encourage you or play a role in the meeting if you need some support. The grassroots efforts, we're all volunteers. If you may or may not know, but we all volunteer our efforts and do this out of passion. If we can get some of you excited and passionate about it, and you want to have these meetings, we're more than happy to support. So we hope you will report your outreach efforts. If you're able to, I believe it was in March. Is that right, Jason? Did I get that right? The Sunset Review meetings, if you're in the Sacramento area?
They're going to fire up about March, but it's going to take throughout the legislative year. So
Right.
we'll into September for things to conclude.
Okay, very good. So we'll keep you in the loop about how the sunset process is going. If you're able to, and nearby where the actual hearings are happening or can attend, that'd be great. And then we plan to, at the end of the year, have some recognition for the chapters or individuals that were the most active. So we hope you'll participate in, and hopefully we'll be recognizing some of the folks on the call here today or their chapters for the work that's been done this year. That's it. I'll hand it back to Phil.
Unmute myself. Great. Thank you very much, Dalton. You know, I think all of us don't get taken for a loop, you know, when the meeting kind of goes south. You know, I've had a lot of meetings where the representative or the legislators 10 minutes late to a 15-minute Zoom meeting, and finally gets on, and we're ready to go through our spiel, and you know, we basically barely get introductions to where, you know, she's okay, what's the ask? What are you here for? What do you want? So it was, you know, basically more or less our meeting was just to kind of reintroduce ourselves after kind of, you know, taking an event after post-COVID to build that relationship or to reinitiate the relationship with the legislator. But it got right to the elevator pitch of, oh, okay, well, you know, we're just, you know, a number of things. We just want to let you know about who we are. And yeah, I already know about land. You know, I got a friend who's a landscape architect. What do you want? And just kind of continue on, because a lot of, you know, again, legislators are busy, and they're just trying to make time for their constituents. And so if be prepared to shift and think a little bit. But again, doing a little homework on your local legislator, the bills that that person has sponsored or is supporting, and the policy that they support. It doesn't have to align completely with ours in the green industry, but when it affects an issue that they will be voting on, they better know that they will be hearing from our profession. So again, I want to just wrap up on a summary of today's webinar. We explained the licensure sunset process, the importance of letting people, the legislators, both senators and assembly people on the Business and Professions Committee, to know who we are and how important licensed landscape architects are in the state. Have given you some meeting resources, the ABCs of how to do best meetings and best practices, meeting with your legislators, and keep an eye on the goal of we have our initial push right now is just to let legislators know we're up for sunset review, and it's important that our license stays protected. And then, go on from there, show local projects and make those connections to the legislator of landscape architects and our impact on communities. And share your efforts, build momentum, share in newsletters with your chapters and your XCOM boards of meeting successes and just the activities that you're involved with. Oh, I lost my screen.
We're all still seeing and hearing you, Phil.
All right. Let's see here. I'm flying blind now here. Let's see here. Bear with me one moment.
Phil, you may want to just tab it. The tab.
Okay.
There you
And as both John and Dalton explained, there's a myriad of resources on our CCASLA website. We will be putting up advocacy letter templates, best practices for conducting meetings, sunset talking points, and as Jason mentioned, links to find your local legislators. And in addition to business and profession committee members, although the BMP committee members are our main target audience at this point, ultimately, I think everybody in the legislator will be voting on this to extend the sunset. So the broad brush approach involving every legislator that is a local constituency is our goal. From a national standpoint, ASLA National has the iAdvocate webpage, and the Government Affairs Office has a number of very good resources at their website. So again, our appeal is we're all in this together. We're all volunteers, but we need landscape architects to be involved and to support the extension of the sunset licensure. These efforts will help not only elevate our profession and visibility, but allow legislators to understand more about our profession and the broad brush of professions and expertise that we offer. So I'd like to open up for questions right now. I thank you for your participation today, and I will stop my screen share. So again, thank you, everybody, and we'll take questions now.
See one in the chat.
I'll take that one. One meeting for sure. Thanks, Justin. And I think, at the moment we're about to hit the bill introduction deadline up in Sacramento in mid-February, so we'll know the full scope of what we're working on. But it's really hard to imagine anything being as significant or as important as sunset extension. And so we would not encourage you to wait until later to start requesting meetings. But yeah, one meeting is definitely preferable.
Any other chat questions? Anything else?
Andrew,
Andrew?
and I say that all you on this call, and I've been invited in the CNS, and so you're experts as well. And you should feel free to go out and advocate for your profession. You're invited to this call is yours in your respective chapters, whether it be in the committee or the XCOM level. And feel free to indoctrinate others, to recruit others within your chapter to help you with these efforts. I think they've mentioned multiple times that, the ask is on you, but the ask is really for everyone, all ASLA members within the state to be a part of this effort. And so the goal of this call was to get the leaders together from different chapters and to share this information. And then you can bring this back to your chapters to kind of build that grassroots effort. So don't feel like it's only on you or everyone on this call. It's really everyone else. And then, CCASLA may hold a more statewide webinar later on as needed to further dispel, get more people involved. But really, it's easy. When I first got involved in advocacy, we had a kind of a trainer, a guy who was teaching us to do this, and they said, this is the easiest conversation you'll ever have because that person you're talking to wants your vote, and so they're going to agree with everything that you say. And I found that to be true. It's a really easy conversation to have with your legislators, and so it shouldn't be a scary or imposing sort of thing. It should be a really easy ask, but just be prepared for that conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. I wanted to add also, in addition to what Drew just said, encouraging you to get out there and do the work. If there are ideas for other webinars, we would very much like to, as a board, support these efforts. So if there was, if we want to drill down into one of these topics or really dissect a meeting or additional kind of go-to things we like to bring, or if you need resources that you'd like to get to be produced or updated, please let us know. We want to hear from you, and we want to do the work to help support those efforts. So if there's ideas come to mind after the meeting, or if you're out there watching this recording sometime in the future and you have an idea after watching it, please reach out to us. You can get our contact information from the CCASLA website, or if you know us personally, just reach out to us personally, and we'll get that going. Thank you.
I just want to follow up on both Drew and Dalton's comments that, we're following as a board anywhere between 20 to 30 bills. And if there's intricacies of the bills or legislation out there you become aware of that we might not know the full impacts that it's impacting your business, please make us aware of that. I had a conversation with a colleague here not too long ago, is that they really had been impacted by a bill affecting work on government projects, and then doing the conceptual and specific plan work, but then were excluded on continuing into CDs. So that legislation went through last year, and he was kind of tongue-in-cheek chiding me. It's like, why didn't CCASLA have a bigger stand on that? So I explained to them, we're trying to watch as many bills as possible, and some bills kind of end up taking the air out of the room. But please, the appeal here, if there are things on your business that may be affected by legislation, please bring that to our attention, because we are your main go-to as the lobby body in the state. But we really want your help in challenging your membership at each chapter to involve folks for legislative advocacy, not only for the defending our licensure and sunset review, but the long term of relationship building, and then having that pay off in spades later on down the road when we really do need an important ask and are asking for amendments to the bill to move it forward with our support. So again, I thank everybody today attending the webinar. I hope it was informal. Any other questions?
Bill, there was one more in there. It was actually a question about emerging professionals that are interested and enthusiastic about advocacy. Do we have suggestions for how they become involved? I'll take a first pass. You should reach out to us. We would very much like to, if we want to have a webinar, or we can meet you in person, depending on where you are, meet up with emerging professionals who are interested in advocacy. You guys are also very, it's very helpful to have emerging professionals come with us to our meetings. They don't always want to just hear from the people that have been practicing forever. They want to hear from the next generation. And so that's it's important that you get involved. We'd love to support it. If anyone else on the call has an additional thought about how EPs can get involved, but very excited to hear that you are involved, and we hope you'll reach out.
I'd like to add to that. I think that when we are doing our district, I would say, activities in advocacy, if you all are interested in joining us, let us know, and we'll help you find another professional to key up with, because it is the combination of the two viewpoints, the present and the future, that I think is really, really interesting for our legislators to hear. They love hearing from people who are going to be, you know, the stars of our future. So partner up with us.
Yeah, emerging professionals and fellows as well. I mean, let's the full gamut. I think is if we can show that the breadth of expertise and the lineage of our profession and the impacts, that goes a long way. Well, again, I'd like to thank everybody for giving up their lunch hour. It's getting past 1 o'clock, so thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon. And we'll see each other again.
Thanks all.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank
much.
you.